Join us this week on Revenue Uncoded as Bill Griffin and Brian Preston discuss their thoughts on AI and where's it going to go over the next 36 months, because it's the next gold rush. This week on Revenue Uncoded. Yeah, we're going. Hey, welcome to
another episode of
Revenue Uncoded.
Coded. Hey, Brian, so interesting week here, right? So we had on our last session, we had Arthur Koenig talking about technology, and it was very fascinating. Serverless, cloud architecture, et cetera, more containers, but a lot of AI stuff, right?
A lot of AI.
A lot of AI stuff. And I think, we had, a conversation at Bible study the other night where we were discussing the impacts of AI and how it would impact tomorrow's workforce. So I think, we don't necessarily have a specific topic for today, but I'd like to focus on the impact of technology on the workforce of today and tomorrow, right? And so we kind of talked about a lot of different things the other night, and we'll see if we can recapture some of that energy here today. But, let's start with, and we're going to tie it back to Telecom. We're going to talk about that, but it's also kind of a meta discussion about just technology, right? So when we talked with Arthur, we talked about the software developer of tomorrow. And that person, as they work with technology and software development, it's all about the parameters that they put into this AI engine. We're going to talk about flavors of AI.
And what it's been trained with, how much data, and
maybe there's filters.
The background.
Maybe there's some filters on that technology, on that AI.
Yeah.
Okay? And by the way, but let's go down that path for a second. Who owns all this AI and stuff?
Well, that's one of the big topics of who actually owns it.
We know
Does anybody control it? And what about the legal issues with this? So, for example, if you're using AI for something and it makes a mistake and causes something bad to happen, who gets sued?
Good question.
Who do you go after?
Well, so there's OpenAI, which I believe is owned by Microsoft, right? I believe. Now, and I would think all of the larger players, Oracle and maybe SAP and
Amazon, everybody,
all of the guys I'm positive have, AI initiatives, and maybe they have their own AI engine that they want to drive. And as a silver-haired technologist, right, I think about the cloud, right? And so the cloud was supposed to be this neutral thing, but now there's an Oracle flavor of cloud, and there's an Amazon flavor of cloud, and there's a Google flavor of cloud. So they all kind of, to me, become a little proprietary and some of those things, right? Because they want you to become encumbered to.
Otherwise, who gets the money?
Right. So it's really kind of the next generation of the OS and the databases is just the cloud architecture. And so now, if we extrapolate things further with AI, is tomorrow's AI going to be filtered and biased by the vendor and the creator of that AI that you're using?
I would think absolutely.
Right.
I don't know how it would not wind up having those certain tails within them that would cause it to go a little one way or the other way, or not deal with something. So and that brings up a lot of ethical issues and questions regarding the use of AI in particular in certain industries and things like, well, is it really doing what you think it's doing, or is it telling you something that you're just comfortable believing that it's true? Because we know, in today's world, we have a lot of issues with tons of information thrown at you at a massive speed. That fire hose of data and information that the average person is hit with each day has never existed before on the planet. There's just so much data coming at you. Now, when you have to make a decision of is that good data or bad data? Now, as older fossil type people,
yes, yeah,
we have a better historical reference on certain things. Not all of them, but on certain things, we've seen a few things that have happened, and we can recognize that as, I'll call that a level 1 BS bomb that goes off.
Mm-hmm.
You can call that out when you see it.
Yep.
And then you've got the challenges of new implementations of technology, old processes a new way, but it's still the same thing, but we've dressed it up a different way. It's the pig with lipstick
There you go.
paradigm that you need to walk through as well. So back to that question of who controls what. Part of the allure of the AI is nobody controls it. You ask it, and it's like this benevolent, wonderful thing that can answer any question that you throw at it.
Mhm.
Why would I want to have to write all this code that's kind of boring to write when and there's a million I don't want to. It'll test it, put it, and do it for me. So that right there brings up a entire segment of technology and computer science and programming jobs that are at somewhat of risk.
I would think so, right? And we were talking about this the other night. Is that software developer, somebody who's in tech school, right, university right now, that's learning all these languages and all this database stuff. What's really going to probably happen, right, is that tomorrow's developer needs to be kind of that feed correctly the parameters into the open AI or the AI rather, and whatever AI vendor is, and then to come it back and make sure that it's correct and filter it, and then apply it to the business situation.
But you just said something to me that's absolutely critical. You need to be able to decide if it's correct or not. If you don't know how to do it yourself, how would you know if it's correct?
You don't.
You don't. So where does that leave you on the next steps with this? If you no longer have an oversight ability to check, is this correct or not correct?
Mm-hmm.
We have a methodology, a business methodology, for example. We expect steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 lead me to XYZ conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I just say, give me the conclusion. I don't know how I got there. Is that even the right conclusion? Who came up with the idea of this conclusion? I want to make something up and give me this, give me that. Well, normally in the business world, you would have had to have a plan. You would have worked through the steps. You would have then figured out, am I on target, not on target? Now, can AI leverage?
You're outsourcing
your brain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So why do you need people on that as this gets bigger and bigger? So who does the oversight then?
That's a good question. And in our last conversation with Arthur, I said, well, that to me says prices should go down, right, because of the automation. But let's talk about this for a second. So what I start thinking about is things like security, right? So I've got a good friend of mine who works in the insurance industry, and they're dealing with cyber attacks, and their practice is going just insanely off, in terms of growth and opportunities, right? With all the bad guys that are doing these cyber attacks because of holes and whatever. OpenAI, or I'm sorry, I keep saying OpenAI. Let me say AI. It kind of seems like there's still gaps. There's opportunities for
it's just now getting to
for fraud.
We would call a little bit of a mainstream. So let's say you wanted to take a look at that from. I'm not a security expert, but I'm old enough to have seen a few things here and there.
Mm-hmm.
When you want to screw with someone else at a state level, at a country level, one of the big things that is done today are cyber attacks, both financial, information.
Right for the money, man.
You cause as much disruption as you can. Well, now we just talked about something that nobody really knows exactly how it works. And so does that mean when you know who's going to raise their hand that says they need to be in charge of it all?
The government.
Our friends in the government.
Because they want to tax everything.
They'll work with the lowest bidder, and they'll be in charge of something that they can't even spell, even though it's just AI.
Correct.
So not that all people in the government, I don't mean to slam on that, but that scares me.
Who has the liability for what is generated out of AI tools?
It hasn't gone to court yet.
Is it the owner, right? All right, so
all right,
so we're on the early stages of this, right? So whether it's a security issue, right, or there's legal issues, right, associated with it. Whether or not these tools are biased by vendor, right,
or by the developers, or whoever invented it.
So all of these dynamics, and when you apply them to a corporate enterprise world, right, that kind of creates liabilities and all sorts of risk and dollars associated with it. But then you've also got, security, national security elements, right? So, defense systems and, should defense systems be using AI?
Well, that's why I'm going to go back to the Terminator. No, I think we've seen that's bad. Overall, based on that movie. So, but that's a huge risk right there. How do you manage that going forward with your defense assets?
So if I'm we're always going to tie back to telecom, right? Telecom is our bread and butter, and it's a big part of what we do, and it's our greatest industry of association. But it's really universal. And to me, everybody is saying, here's this gold rush, here's this land rush to automate and leverage this fantastic tool, but it's still the early stages, and all of these unknown variables and risk elements, could have massive tails, right? So what's your level of investment on AI if you are a telecom software vendor, or if you're a telecom operator, right? Do you take a staged baby step approach, or do you just jump into the pool?
Well, I think by using it, you step into part of that pool no matter what, i.e. there could be some liability there depending on what you're using it for. Mm-hmm. In our industries, we've identified that we know the CRM, the ticketing systems,
customer
service, being able to knock monitoring, all sorts of things where you have kind of those, once again, we're going to go back to those defined processes that we have an expectation of how this should work. And what we're doing is providing at levels of efficiency with that AI instead of having to do it at a more rote level. We're going to use something that's interpretive, that takes different parameters into account. What's the best? The person asked XYZ question. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to talk about A, B, and C.
You mean like
he wants X, Y,
the customer calling into the telecom operator.
They've got a question. Or marketing-wise, you're going to go, well, our demographics are showing that people are interested in this, not this.
Where's the best place to build this broadband fiber that's going to have the greatest return on asset, for the next 10 years?
And let's ask it. Let's ask for geostability of the areas we're going to put our towers up. Mm-hmm. We're going to do, so you've got a lot of different information that's available to you now that you can get quicker than you used to be. You have to go out and hire site surveys, et cetera.
Consultants,
all kinds of
a lot of people.
On way that's that efficiency, I think, that we're all hoping we get out of the AI model. But the next thing comes up is, what if something bad happens?
Well, all right. So this is what triggered my thought. Maybe you use AI for modeling, right? You use it as a minimum as a modeling tool for the what if, where should I go? How should I do it? And you use it but it's still so early in the adoption of the technology with all these risk elements that we talked about. Maybe you don't put it into production systems yet.
Yeah, but as soon as somebody figures they can save a couple of bucks by using this over having some people do it that cost them more, they get sick and they don't show up, or you got to pay health care for, or what have you, that drive for cost savings is going to push that out there pretty quick. I don't see it not happening that way.
So in my mind, I'm thinking about a customer that has a trouble ticketing system, right? And they're saying, I've got an issue with this and that, right? So level 1 or level 2 support that most software vendors provide, those people may inevitably be replaced by the customer of the software saying, I need this problem addressed, I need this challenge addressed, based on my configuration of that software.
And that's interesting. I wish we had Arthur here to weigh in on that piece, because we kind of talked on that on the last one. But I'll jump over a little bit to what you said earlier, which is the gold rush mentality. So you've got, so in the, if we look at that from a historical standpoint, whenever there's been a watershed moment, whether it's the Industrial Revolution, whether you've got
or client server mainframe going to client server,
and I don't think those were just efficiency levels, I would say, but this is a
whole nother level.
New level
It is
fortunes to be
exponentially
made, lost, risk. Just think of the people that packed up when the land grabs were going on, and people were, we're in Kansas, so we've got all the trails came out of the trailheads here in Kansas City, and Oregon trails, the Santa Fe Trail, all this stuff is everywhere.
Kansas history, ladies and gentlemen.
You can't miss it. But all those people took off without any expectation of, hopes and dreams, but no expectations that it's guaranteed it's going to work for them. And there's a lot of graves on the side of those trails, things that didn't turn out. But people made fortunes off of selling, in the gold rush, for example, the shovels.
Right.
Other people went in and made a fortune out of stealing other people's claims when they found the gold.
Good point. History repeats itself.
There wasn't, we'll go to the legal thing, there wasn't a lot of law enforcement in a lot of these gold rush areas.
And that's what we're dealing with right now.
So you're going to have the same parameters here, where
the bad guys are going to figure out a way to steal money.
the scammers are always first, because they just are, because it's
And the
easy for 'em.
and the guys that are going to be selling you the latest technology tool to supplement your AI stream, they're just going to sit there and just go like this and salivate and make tons of money.
Right.
That's the analogy to the shovel.
Yep.
Right. But the other night that at the Bible study, you discussed, we were talking about the time frame for this stuff. And I was thinking like 10, 15 years, and you're like, no, brother.
No.
The next 3 years, and the adoption
36
rate
months is
going to be
nuts.
insane.
Yeah, it's
Right.
It's happening right now at that flywheel of uptake of this, and the speed that it's rolling is picking up speed. It's going down a very steep hill, gathering energy. And so some of these things, this is that gold rush. Everybody's hopping on their wagons, taking off on the unknown trails, and it's going to be littered with fortunes made, fortunes lost.
Well, I mean, I'll take it one step further, right? As somebody who might be keeping an eye on their 401k at my age, right? And you look at Microsoft, and you look at Oracle, and you look at Google, and the influence that those heavy stocks have on the overall stock market, right?
Yep.
Their approach, their strategy for AI is really probably what could drive a lot of the market success over the next couple, 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, do you think that's a little much? Do you think it's a little overboard?
I don't know.
You think we're going overboard with this? Because inevitably, we've always talked at all of our sessions, we talked about legacy and the new, right? So you still have a wing-walking exercise of how do I deal with all the legacy systems that has to kind of run. And you just can't kind of do a flash cut of all of these enterprise systems that are based on the architectures that we live with today over to AI. That's not going to happen.
And what that architecture would look like, that goes back to our previous conversation we were talking about earlier. So what is the architecture when you implement it in there? Who owns that architecture now? You just ask and set some parameters in and ask for something to be done. Like if you want to write some code, give me a Perl script that does X, Y, Z, and the thing, whatever. Okay, I thought of what it should be doing and asked those questions. But as it becomes more enabled to continue to evaluate the things that aren't working internally, there's no human interaction anymore at that.
But who controls how?
That it's learned on its own. So that's the whole idea. Like, when people say, is it become self-aware or sentient, that it understands X, Y, and Z, that it understands what it's not working right means, or I can improve it.
Well,
maybe, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the tuning of AI, but you hear certain smart people talking about those things, and that there's somewhat of a risk of sliding down this hill a little too fast. So let's just focus in on what we would do in our telecom practices. So if you're going to, we know you can get some benefits out of from the customer care, CRM, self-care, all that kind of stuff.
Which is sad, because that's going to translate into a lot of lost jobs. There's a lot of people that are rank and file that are just great people that do tremendous jobs that inevitably are going to be replaced by AI.
And it's another industrial revolution, but it's a technology one. Same with robotics or things like that. So the ability go to the next stage, and I don't want to switch too many gears here at this point, but we do want to talk about, what does that workforce look like 36 months from now in these things, because of the dynamics and the changes. You as a service provider, for example, what would you be doing to leverage the best, minimize the risk of adopting the AI, saving your money? You want your ROI to go up, you want your ARPU to go up, all of these items for you're following the money. So if it's more efficient, they're going to go there. You have to go.
Just like offshore.
You have to go.
Just like offshore. Inevitably, you'll be forced to kind of, in today's world, you deal with offshore development. So, and by the way, I would just going to say the same thing, is that I believe AI will have a significant impact on offshore development.
Just development in general. I'm going to go back to my argument regarding who are the architects. Do you still have humans as architects within these things? I think the answer is going to be,
you have to,
for the most part, yes.
You have to have a check and balance. You cannot let the machines just run everything.
Well, but you get to the point where the machine's doing things you don't know that it did. You got the result you wanted, but you don't know exactly that there's something else that took place there. Not nefarious or anything, but it may be some steps that it's doing that will have offshoots or implications or ripples in the pond here that you're not going to know about. So how do you triage and figure out what that is? How do you decide that it does what you wanted it to do? First of all, you need to know what you want it to do, and then you need a way to measure that. So let's talk about audits for a second in our industry. We're going to
like
security, data compliance, all of these different items,
transactions,
everything. So depending on what kind of audit you're doing, or what you're doing for compliance, or you're just doing it for your own for your own due diligence, where you're making sure, do I have my best life cycle processes in place? Am I managing my processes well? On security, on data, on backup, so all these different items. So today there's certain forms and processes you go through that meet certain criteria tests for you to be in compliance. What happens if you hand that off to AI? Who measures that? How does that get done?
Inevitably, I see government jumping in and trying to control.
That would be an absolute disaster.
Well, it could be good and could be bad, right? It kind of.
I'm going to bet you $500 right now that it's bad.
Well, I mean, if you squelch, you put a blanket on top of something, sometime in the better interest of safety or security or bankruptcy or bank runs or whatever, right? So.
But that doesn't interfere with the day-to-day work. That's a safety valve.
But at the same time, you want the capitalism to kind of thrive and kind of innovation and technology.
I'm leery of too much oversight, but at the same time, I'm screaming we need to have oversight here. So it's a double-edged sword.
It is a double-edged.
I recognize that, but I don't like the idea of capitalism being reined in by
excessive oversight.
That is excessive.
Inevitably you lose innovation.
Always is.
Inevitably you lose innovation when that happens, right?
The history has shown us that the regulations that get generated become more onerous and cantankerous over time.
And in the telecom industry, we kind of flash back to the breakup of Ma Bell into the regional Bell operating companies. And then the CLEC explosion. We had the CLECs, right?
But it opened up
the implosion of the CLECs and the consolidation of the CLECs. We went from 700 down to about 15 in about 4 years, right? So
very disruptive.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating topic. And when we think about when I think about the workforce, I'm wondering, are universities teaching AI? Do they have classes in AI? Do they have applied AI into the business world?
I mean, I know my kids have been in college recently, and they did get some AI training.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
But at a high level, I think each year as you move down the calendar here, and you're a freshman next year, you're probably going to get, it's kind of a logarithmic move up the ladder here for how much that's going to jump into your university world or your training world.
Yep.
But then again, historically, new technology adoption and training in a lot of academic areas, sometimes either is at the forefront or it lags way behind, just because that's just the nature of the beast. Mm-hmm. But that's certainly for people that are in the technology industries and the data processing and computers, you need some background on that for sure.
I'm thinking about AI technology creating university programs itself, right?
Yeah,
AI teaching AI.
Well, and it's Skynet. It's all over.
It's all over the place.
It's all over. No, but it's so true, because you've got a lot of unknowns at this point because of the power and flexibility that is allegedly going to be at our fingertips. And just if you've played with it or done some of this stuff so far, you're like, it's amazing what you can get out of just asking the AI engines.
It is amazing, and we're just scratching the surface, right? And I agree with you wholeheartedly. There is going to be a gold rush, and I think the 3-year planning horizon is also accurate. It is going to be exponential.
Yeah.
The adoption rate as it applies to different industries and different verticals, it's kind of a to be determined.
Yeah, when they all have different conditions that would impact that speed of uptake with it. For example, I mean, like some places not so fast.
Little telecom input. Remember I always talked about the cable guys kind of running with the herd and being slow to innovate unless they have competitive pressure, whereas the mobile guys are all about, hey, we got to do this.
The next thing.
So within our own industry, I would kind of see the cable guys continuing to kind of be that slow-moving herd, whereas the mobile guys are probably going to leverage it first over the cable guys. That's just a guess. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but if history is an indicator, that it will happen the same way.
Yeah,
but
I would not bet against that. I think that's probably reasonably well thought out on that argument for that piece of it.
So these all right. So we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about workforce, the impact. We at the Bible meeting the other night, we were talking about tomorrow's workforce. There's probably a little more need to kind of focus on tangible skills that will create your salary, right? Everything from an electrician to a butcher to, so you may see an uplift in some of those
trade schools
or blue collar.
Everything
works.
micro.
Those may become more valuable, right, than a lot of, certainly the liberal arts or kind of the other ones, but a lot of the rank and file IT folks, right, network administrators / software developers, they're going to have to up their game, right? They're going to have to be more interpretive of what they feed into the AI and what they receive back and how they filter it and how they deploy it, right? And so then I can kind of see all sort of cottage industries start to pop up about what's the best way to deploy AI in a safe framework, right? And within some sort of process. I would think more challenge for today's CIO, right? I mean, in our previous episodes, we talked about the balancing act between going legacy and over into best of breed new generation. Now you've got this AI element, and how the heck do I deal with that now, right? How do I incorporate that into my and placate the demand for incremental business change?
I think you need to be investing some time and coin of the realm in that strategy of how you're going to implement AI within your shop, within your business. Because the answers aren't, it'll be interesting to see 12 months from now, revisit this topic, listen to what we just said.
Yeah, we'll be.
Oh my God, what an idiot!
Yeah,
or
exactly.
I was the amazing Kruskin, the amazing Kruskin. But because it's such a dynamic and disruptive technology at this point, how you use this in your business is unclear and you need to try a few things, and you need to make sure, does this really fit in there? Do I really understand what I could do with it? I'm going to go back to my architecture comment before, which is, what am I trying to do? That's my goal. And number two is, how would I get AI to help me get to that goal faster and cheaper? And those are the questions that, as you kind of juxtaposition the two things. Here's the traditional way I would approach this, solving a problem or bringing something up to speed with my business, or, well, what is it that I can leverage out of this new technology, out of AI, for example, to jumpstart this, or do it in a completely different manner? Because there may be some things that I just can't get out of my old brain on how I think about the steps I would go through, versus somebody else goes, well, why are you even talking about that? All you have to do is do this. And dang, here you are.
Dang. Yeah, man, that's a trade-off. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about, cloud adaptation, right? The first uses of cloud adaptation were more B2C, right? Here's my storage for my photos or my music or whatever, right? And B2B wasn't necessarily there, right? So the B2C applications, I would think, might be more AI-centric adoption over the next few years. And I would think the B2B, or the enterprise applications of AI, might be behind the B2C. What do you think?
I think it's probably the other way around.
Really?
Yeah, because I think because you're going to save a lot of money on the B2B side when you go to cloud native, when your enterprise infrastructure is that easily managed. So that's
mind blown. All right,
that's one item.
All right.
Then on the B2C side of that, you've got another level of marketing and sales and things that go in on that consumer side of it. Mm-hmm. That has a different set of consumption parameters to it of what they're going to buy, sell, do with you, where they're going to spend their money. When I'm doing B2B, I want efficiency between my other vendors and my partners. Mm-hmm. I want to reduce my operating expenses. Mm-hmm. I want to be efficient. I want to be able to fail fast. I want to be able to try new things out quickly with my infrastructure. I don't want to be tied to legacy hardware and networking, for example, when I can use a newer technology. If I want to be able to migrate, next time I migrate to a new architecture, if you will, for my network, mm-hmm. it's no longer as much of a physical endeavor as it is I'm adding new software components to it.
All right, so I just said another, man.
That can be wrong.
No. Right now I'm thinking about the cohabitation of native cloud architecture. And now, is AI going to jump into the cloud? It's
already part of it.
It's already part of it?
In versions of it. I mean, between the virtualization, I guess I don't want to confuse the terms there, but that AI of being able to just send some parameters and spin up an entire mm-hmm. business mm-hmm. infrastructure from a technology standpoint is like getting closer and closer.
Well, I'm having a little flashback. All right, 1986. Bill Griffin goes out and gets his MBA, gets out of college, at an absolute awful time to get out of college and go find a job.
Well played.
So I ended up going, oh man, I'll go get a master's. And so then I got a job in Chicago with Xerox, right? And I'm knocking door to door with selling Xerox copiers. But AI actually had a huge start with Xerox Technologies. So the AI of yesteryear started with these big, huge, massive copiers being able to kind of predictively anticipate a service call on the high-volume copiers. So that is really where AI started, was back in the 1980s, believe it or not.
AI or good parameter detection?
Well, I don't know. But now fast forward is that then they all started talking about the paperless office in the mid-80s and being,
now you don't
that's going to happen, right?
Or even virtual office.
Yeah, you're right. God, man, that's scary. But the paperless office didn't really happen for another 15 years.
And it still doesn't happen because there's still people that will print everything that comes out. Every meme they get, everything that they've shopped on the internet, they print out. But I'm not talking about my own house.
But the adoption rate is continues to kind of get shorter and shorter and shorter, and the speed, the innovation, the office of tomorrow. And we were talking about that. That's another variable, right? Is with everybody now
going home
and working remote, right? And that interaction being digital.
Goes back to, I'll throw out one more time. How do you come up with the enterprise architecture you want to implement when the people don't even get together much anymore? You're going to hand it off to some computer and hope that it does the best for you. And you don't really have a good way of figuring out whether it did a good job or not.
That's putting more and more and more reliance on the machine and technology, and less and less and less on the human being.
You can have diagnostic tools. You can have, there's that talk about the guy that goes in and it's got something wrong with his water heater or his heating system, and they call the guy, comes in, and he stands around for a minute, takes his hammer out, smacks it on one pipe, and all of a sudden everything turns back on. And he goes, that'll be $900. And they go, that's outrageous. Well, it's $10 for the hammer, but it's $890 to know where to hit it.
Boom.
So I don't know.
Where hammer has come into play.
I don't know where that comes along in the long term on this, but to me, I see serious workforce implications there. I think everybody else does as well.
Massive.
But if you're not in the office, you're not having those planning sessions the way you had before. Maybe they'll get better. Maybe part of that is just because I'm old.
Yeah, maybe.
And I like to sit down and work with people on things face to face.
I think I read where the number one concerns by most CEOs is whether or not remote working is the right play or not. Right. Are they concerned about productivity or
work is work, home is home. That's just me. But
Well, let's do this. So let's kind of summarize a few things here.
Let's do our Kreskins and figure out what.
I'm down with that. All right. So first, impact to jobs in the telecom space with AI.
Support personnel, I would think.
I'm going to go with
that would be my thought.
CSRs.
Yeah, because of the when we were talking with Carlos and Alvaro a few sessions ago regarding those contact centers and the CRM centers, and that being able to use those predictive models based on certain questions that the customer may be entering, or fully, even if it's non-structured data, or they just talked in, you can do voice to text. Use you didn't talk to a person at all. Those online AI chat bots used all the time. I mean, it's already, that uptake's already there.
All right. So here's the next one. Over under on the number of months before there's a massive news story about a security breach or something that is broken, all right, because of bad guys and use of AI.
Well, but what if the AI already knows not to rat itself out?
Now that's funny.
But who's in charge of that?
Well, there you go. Exactly. I'm gonna go 15 months. I'm going to say 15 months from June of 2023. There will be some sort of massive news story of people either being impacted from a safety or from financial perspective because of AI gone wrong.
15 months?
I'm going to go 15 months.
I'm going to go for, It's the definition of what is active AI at that point. I'm going to go on the over.
Going to go over?
I'm going to go over.
All right. Well, that implies a slower adoption rate of AI
because
into the mainstream of what we're talking about.
I don't know how in depth it is in the financial markets yet. You can certainly do stuff with code, but I don't think everybody is automated on their code deployments from AI generated stuff. So,
all right.
So that's why I'm going to go on the over, because I'm hoping people are more cautious. That may just be me being hopeful.
All right. So here's the next one. All right. will there be proprietary AI where it's kind of coming from a vendor? And, I hate to say big company names, because I don't want
but maybe there may be, I would think that would be limited focus AI that maybe is specific for. So let's say you had medical AI, for example, and it does certain tasks like the gallbladder removal with the little robotics and the other things like that. How much AI is I don't know, but to me those would be focused areas where you would leverage that decision making and the analytics available with the AI to take all those different parameters into account. And it's been trained, it's done this enough times that you have a very high degree of confidence in whatever that recommendation or task is, or whatever the deliverable is that comes out of the AI. So to me, that's part of the gold rush, because if you're able to provide, and it's you call it proprietary, I understand what you're saying. It's a focused deliverable out of AI that meets a particular set of goals.
All right.
And it has a shell around it that limits its exposure to other things. So which should limit you to your liability exposure for other things going crazy. Like, hey, I wanted to turn my furnace up with my AI and it emptied my bank account. How'd that happen? Well, I don't know. It just did. So, but if it's just the AI working with your HVAC system and monitoring your smart home, making decisions and things for you, that's limited.
All right. So next one. Will there be an open AI standards forum? Just like in Telecom, we've got TM Forum, good people, and they kind of work toward a lot of different things. Will there be a global AI standards association?
To do what? From a ethics standpoint, from a security standpoint, maybe all the above.
All the above, right? Because inevitably, because I'm thinking about thinking about federal involvement or government intervention if things start getting out of control.
Question. Because, we kind of talked about the whole gold rush mentality of this is going to go, it's going to be the Wild West. And for those of you not in the U.S., the Wild West was wild. So they're a little short on law and order in certain areas. So let's do
Will there be an AI standards organization?
But when you say standards, it's like if you had standards for in the technology for data feeds and things, or from technology standpoint, from network protocols and architectures and things. AI just used that standard and eats it.
You've already educated me on the filters, right? When you query something into an AI engine that are probably more commercial, available on Google or whatever, there are things you cannot ask it and it will not give you an answer. Right? Well, that's a filter, right? Yeah. But that is the owners of that search engine saying we're going to put these parameters.
That's today, but as it gets smarter, it may filter its own stuff based on what parameters it was told to generate filters. And once again, you go back to who knows how it works.
And in my opinion, inevitably, if there's a catastrophic event, right, whether it's the loss of life or the loss of a lot of money or some sort of massive fraud or theft, inevitably that is where somebody is going to say we have to put some parameters and or controls around it, right? So that's why I asked the leading question.
But how do you put controls around something you don't know how it works?
Mind blown. I don't know.
That's what I mean. So that's why the only thing that my brain can assimilate at this process, at this moment with this, based on what we've seen so far or I've seen so far, is the focused AI deliverables, specific industries, specific. We're talking about customer care. You've got an architectural box that these are the services we wish to be able to provide to our customers. I can manage that. I can put a box around that. So, do you have a full standard, or are you going to have standards that get defined for all of our industries and interactions with AI. I would think you're going to have something.
There'll be something.
What that is, I don't really know.
And
probably you just ask the AI to do it itself.
Shut up. And when we talked about adaptation, whether it's B2C first or B2B, and if you're today's CIO, I would imagine almost every CIO of any organization of size, has some sort of initiative, right? Has some sort of evaluation. And I think the bottom line is that they are going to take, a cautious but zealous evaluation of the technology and how, and I'm sure they've already identified what project, a trial project of AI that we're going to look at in the next 12 months.
Well, it's already well entrenched within the CSR and the order taking and chat and
but all that kind of stuff.
All those kind of things. So but to me that's a model that fits. It serves the deliverables that the people are looking to get. It's not making leading suggestions per se. But it's evaluating and bringing up the best solutions based on all the parameters it gets from the customer.
Yeah, and then we talked about the technologist of tomorrow, right? And that shift, right? And A, there's probably going to be less of them. B is that their job requirements are going to be more about the feed and the interpretation, and then the implementation of those results that come out of AI. Right, and kind of making sure that the controls are there. So we've talked about that. Man, a lot of good stuff here, Mr.
You need AI sheriffs after that, because how do you grade?
Got it. Another corporate department, the AI.
How do you
the preparation of AI?
But you're going to have some other departments that go away, so it's a wash.
Yeah, maybe.
But your ability to be confident in as the AI adoption rate and penetration within your organization gets deeper and deeper and deeper, that scariness of, well, what did it really just do?
You need a steward. You need somebody to keep an eye on.
Well, and is that something a person can do?
Well, you can't outsource AI to another AI. Well, or maybe you could. Maybe there's a check and balance between multiple AI vendors.
Well, that goes back to that. You've got to there has to be some scoping guardrails around these implementations, and you have to have a way to audit it. That's the next big thing of money.
Yeah,
to make money on how to audit the AI.
Auditors got to be placated. Yeah. Well, hey man, interesting conversation, Mr. Presson, as always. Well, and you got anything else you want to throw in there?
I want to go and think 1 second here for, do we want to have any Kreskins? I think we kind of, what? Any Kreskins, our prognostications. What's it going to look like? We kind of covered most of that.
We did a little bit, right? But I stand by, when will there be the first public
disaster?
Yes, disaster. Right? Whether that's life, money,
it's the AI,
security, defense, whatever it is. Inevitably, when that happens, people are going to go, wow, we've got to put some parameters or controls around this thing.
Yeah, because it does raise some interesting questions. This thing, just we had with Bitcoins and cryptocurrency.
All that kind of stuff.
There were some scammers that were in the middle of that. So there's some challenges with that. And there are a couple of known instances of, we'll call it shenanigans.
Shenanigans. You're going to call shenanigans.
I'm going to call it shenanigans.
Full-out shenanigans?
It was full-out shenanigans.
Full-out shenanigans.
Yes.
Hey, man, I don't know if I got anything else further. As always, Mr. Presson,
excellent.
Enjoy talking to you. Interesting conversation here today on Revenue Uncoded. We tried to tie in a lot of telecom elements into it, a lot of unknowns on this great gold rush that is AI, but it's going to be a crazy next 3 years. I think
everybody is definitely going to be taking a look at that on how to leverage it.
And thank God you and I are here to provide some insights and advice and A conversation.
And then what'll be funny is 12 months from now and go, oh my God, we were right, or
We were right.
good Lord, we had no clue that was going to be that way.
But thank God it's been recorded here on another session of Revenue Uncoded. Coded. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.